Bit of a letdown. It was still good. The first one really sucked though. I'm gonna do what I did with the VHS movies. I think I did anyway. Where I talk about the one I like the least and the one I like the most. First one is about a killer cart. Yes, a killer cart. It really sucked. Some of the things didn't make sense. Like, there's this guy named Hale, and they play him out to be a dick even though everyone's rude to him. He's just doing his job, and he gets called an old man and told that he's not doing his job right. So he retaliates, and he's called a jerk, and what he said was unnecessary. And then later the boyfriend is like, hey, he's a jerk. And then she doesn't even argue. She just says, yep, he's a jerk. The second one kind of sucked too. There was a few good moments in it, but it just wasn't that good. I did like some of the jokes, like he runs out of beers, and when he kills the monster, he goes outside and he finds a full can of beer on the truck. And I really liked his reaction. But I didn't really care for that short either. There's one about zombie spouses, where these guys all decide to kill each other's wife, and they bury them in this witch's yard, so it's kind of like the pet cemetery. So they get brought back to life. And it ends with the husband's being brought back to life too, because later they decide to kill themselves because they didn't want to deal with their wives. Then there's this guitar one. It's kind of like Gremlins, because it has 3 rules. Never feed them after midnight. There's also never get them wet. And they don't like the light. This one also has 3 rules. One of them is never use the guitar for money. Never play it in the morning for some reason. And the third rule is very weird. It's like never pretend the guitar is your dick. Like, okay. He ends up doing them all. So the guitar has like an axe on the end, and when he does them all, the axe comes off and just kills a bunch of different people, and then it eventually kills him. So that one was kind of lame. But I did like the zombie spouse one. It had its moments, but it kind of sucked too. It was just a really big letdown. Because if you read a movie and it talks about amateur Satanists, reverse werewolves, psychotic lunch ladies, and zombie spouses, it sounds good. But it just did not live up to the hype. Speaking of the reverse werewolves one, it was nothing like I imagined. A dog gets bit off screen, and it turns into a human at night instead of a werewolf. And it starts sleeping with its owner, so gross. And he ends up getting his own dog, I guess, at the end, and they both eat milk-bone dog treats, and it just kind of ends. This is supposed to be a horror comedy, but that one had 0 of either. There was like no jokes in that episode. And then there was like no scariness either, since we never saw the dog get bit by a werewolf. I think that's it. There's 7 shorts, but since most of them suck and are just really weird, it's pretty hard to remember them. Okay, the lunch lady one, actually. That was probably the funniest one, but it still wasn't really good. It's these two lunch ladies. One of them ends up getting harassed in the bathroom by a student. So she kills the student. And she makes a pie out of the student. Bunches and bunches of pie. And they finally make good lunch. And they needed that to get a raise to go see Johnny Depp, one of their favorite actors, and go to one of his concerts. And they finally were able to make good food, since the lunch only gave them like rotten potatoes and just gross food, and they couldn't make good food out of it. They won a competition for one of their hamburgers being like one of the best hamburgers the judge tasted. So if they would have gotten good food, they would have been able to cook good food, but they weren't. So yeah, they end up killing a student and serving it to the students. And then they win the Johnny Depp concert. It wasn't very good, but it was the best out of all of them. And the amateur Satanist was okay, but it was like 6 minutes. I get their shorts, but that is way too short. One guy comes in late, puts on his robe backwards, and has a panda mask instead of the mask that they're supposed to use. And he also gives the guy the book upside down, and he doesn't even realize it. So when he summons the devil instead, he summons Jesus Christ. And it ends with a corny joke about the guy who summoned Jesus Christ saying, Jesus Christ. So yeah, this was a very big letdown. And it's just way too weird at times. So it has its moments, but it's obviously not for everybody, and I did not care for it. So obviously it's not very good.